Dumela mangwana ni mwalelepo vukenjani xexas vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show that remains your portal into Africa's most potent stories. Today, we're going to be joined by Arrie Hougaard as he delivers the South Africa report. But prior to that, these are some of the stories we're looking at. Breaking news, United Nations General Assembly recognizes transatlantic slave trade as gravest crime against humanity. Kenya mass grave probe expands as dozens of infant bodies unearthed. South Africa arrests senior police officers over alleged corrupt contract. Ghana signs first of its kind defense pact with EU amid regional threats. And Mahama criticizes U.S. policies over erasure of black history. This was at a United Nations event. DSTV 285, GOTV 25, oneup2.com, Network Media Hub, and NTVAFRIKA.MY.NA is where you can watch the show. Keep in mind that Africa is spelt with a K, as well as NTV Africa on YouTube. Africa Good Morning remains available to you. My name is Ashwin Bedi. Top stories shortly.
Namibia is a land of movement, with waves that never stop reaching forward. Here, adventure is not something we search for. It is something we are born into. In every corner of this country, creativity rises, from artists, from athletes, from dreamers. And when the world comes to explore Namibia, they discover something extraordinary. Because when sport moves people, creativity moves ideas, and tourism moves the world toward us. Something powerful happens. A platform where movement meets imagination, where industries connect, where opportunity grows, where Namibia's next chapter begins. Welcome to the Creative Sport Tourism Expo. Exhibit, partner, experience. Creative sport tourism.
In our top stories, the United Nations General Assembly has voted to recognize the enslavement of Africans during the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity in a resolution proposed by Ghana that aims to advance healing and justice. The measure passed with 123 votes in favor, while the United States, Israel, and Argentina voted against, and 52 countries abstained, including the United Kingdom and European Union member states. The resolution urges member states to consider apologies and contributions to a reparations fund, though no specific amount is stated. Ghana's President John Mahama told the Assembly that the decision honors the memory of millions who suffered. Between 1500 and 1800, around 12 to 15 million Africans were taken to the Americas, with over 2 million dying during the journey. The resolution notes lasting racial inequalities and underdevelopment affecting Africans globally today. Here is Ghana's President John Mahama after the successful resolution.
Each step bringing us closer to the kind of world we would want to leave for our children. And so delegates, on this beautiful day in March, were called to stand on the right side of history. Let it be recorded that when history beckoned, we did what was right for the memory of the millions who suffered the indignity of the slave trade and those who continue to suffer racial discrimination. Let our vote on this resolution restore their dignity and humanity.
We now swing back to Kenya. About 32 bodies, mostly children, were exhumed from a mass grave in Kericho in western Kenya as investigations continue into the discovery. Police had initially obtained a court order to retrieve 14 bodies believed to be buried at the site, but the number rose following the exhumation process. Government pathologist Richard Njoroge described the findings as unusual, noting bodies stacked in gunny bags after a day-long exercise disrupted by heavy rains. He confirmed 7 adults and 25 children, including infants and fetuses, were recovered alongside several body parts. Some remains appeared to have originated from hospitals and mortuaries, pending autopsy confirmation. Adult remains were highly decomposed, while children's remains were less so, indicating deaths occurred at different times. Detectives and forensic teams worked under tight security, collecting intact bodies and partial remains. The site, belonging to the National Council of Churches of Kenya, was sealed off, with the organization denying involvement in the burial process. We move on. South African anti-graft investigators have arrested 12 senior police officers on allegations of corruption and fraud, with prosecutors confirming their court appearance in Pretoria. The arrests are linked to an allegedly corrupt contract for health and well-being services awarded to police officers. Authorities said a 13th individual, a company director, was also arrested. The case forms part of broader investigations into high-ranking corruption within the police, including inquiries ordered by President Cyril Ramaphosa and a separate parliamentary probe. Prosecutors allege some officers involved in the bid committee should have disqualified the company. The accused appeared alongside Vusimuzi Kat Matlala, owner of Medicare 24, who is suspected of links to organized crime and is already being held in a maximum security prison on unrelated attempted murder charges. All officers submitted affidavits supporting bail applications, with prosecutors indicated that they would not oppose bail. The developments follow ongoing scrutiny into alleged relationships between senior officers and crime figures. Now, Ghana has signed a defense cooperation agreement with the European Union in Accra, strengthening collaboration in counter-terrorism and cybersecurity as militant activity escalates in neighboring countries. The deal was signed by EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaya Kallas and Ghanaian Vice President Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang, marking Ghana as the first African country to enter such an agreement with the EU. Officials said the pact reflects efforts to address emerging threats at both national and regional levels. During the visit, EU representatives delivered drones, anti-drone systems, bomb disposal vehicles, and motorcycles to Ghana's military. While Ghana has largely remained unaffected by militant violence, nearby regions have experienced growing activity linked to affiliates of Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group. Reports indicate militants sometimes cross into Ghana to regroup or move supplies. Aid agencies estimate about 2 million people have been displaced in Burkina Faso over the past decade, highlighting the wider regional impact of the insurgency. Now, before the tabling of the UN resolution, which was successful, John Dramani Mahama was in New York, and the President of Ghana criticized the United States administration, stating that its policies are normalizing the erasure of black history. Speaking in New York at a United Nations event on slavery reparations, Mahama warned that such approaches could influence other governments and institutions globally. He said actions targeting cultural and historical institutions, including museums and education systems, risk removing the truth about slavery, segregation, and racism. Mahama noted that black history courses were being removed, books banned, and institutions directed to alter teaching content. In response, a White House spokesperson said that administration had delivered for black Americans and maintained strong support for the community. Mahama was attending the UN General Assembly to propose the resolution recognizing the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime in human history and calling for reparations. And as we know, that was successful. This is Africa. Good morning. And those have been our top stories. Shortly, we're going to have a listen to John Dramani Mahama speaking with regards to that. And then we're going to swing to Arrie Hougaard in South Africa.
Truth begins with language, with the power that words hold to shape consciousness and to shift perspectives, to propel an action or other. There's no such thing as a slave. There were human beings who were trafficked and then enslaved by people who believed they could own those human beings as chattels, as their personal property. The entire transatlantic slave trade was designed to deny African people their humanity. And that denial was premised on a racial hierarchy with no basis in fact or science, a racial hierarchy that deemed whiteness superior and blackness inferior. So when discussing slavery and its resulting institutions and practices, we must always start by reclaiming racial equality, the dignity of Africans, the humanity of our ancestors who were enslaved, and as a matter of course, our own humanity. I speak these words today not only for Ghana, but also in solidarity with the rest of Africa, the Caribbean, Latin America, and the wider diaspora, and indeed all people of good conscience throughout the world. This resolution is a pathway to healing and reparative justice. This resolution is a safeguard against forgetting. We stand united as Africans, whether on the continent or any part of the world, and link up with people of conscience around the world to seek truth and justice and restore the dignity and humanity of victims of the slave trade. This is a resolution of destiny. And I hope all of you will vote tomorrow to establish truth so that together we can pass this historic resolution and finally acknowledge the full horrors of these transgressions against humanity of the approximately 15 million human beings who were enslaved.
All right, it's time for Arrie Hougaard to deliver the South Africa report, starting with the Johannesburg Stock Exchange having its worst performing month since 2008, and South Africa's taxi industry bracing for challenging times ahead because of the fuel price hikes.
In current news in South Africa, it is the Johannesburg Stock Exchange that's in the news. So it's the economy of South Africa that's in the news, and also related to the war in Iran. So at the moment, the stock exchange, the JSE, unfortunately, Johannesburg Stock Exchange is on its way for the worst month since 2008. So that's not good news, and billions of rand lost in market value in this month already. So the reason for that is inflation fears. That's the first one, and also sell-off of mining and also banking stocks. And the all-share index dropped almost 14% this month. Also, the vulnerability of oil price, of course, it was touching $114 at one stage, is going above $100 as well. So it's very sensitive at the moment to what's happening in Iran. And so the mining stocks and also the banking stocks, or the mining stocks specifically, shared 29% in March alone. And so the JSE plunge wiped out more than, or about 507 billion South African rand on market value. So that is a huge huge amount of money. The top 40 index is also down 15%. And the reason for that is that 33% consists of mining exposure in the top 40 index. And so economists, not good news. When you speak to economists, they say that inflation can also jump from 3.2% in March, also up all the way to 4.5% in April in South Africa. So that's a bit bleak. And gold is trading at the moment around $4,375. It's also down about 13% at what it was quite recently. And the rand is to the dollar is hovering around 17 to the dollar, 17 rand to the dollar. So that's all influenced to what's happening in Iran. More current news also influenced to what's happening in Iran is related to fuel prices. And there's a big shock waiting for South Africans. If estimates are correct, the fuel price might go up by 5 rand to the litre, and the diesel price as much as 8 rand to the litre. So that's a massive increase, and that will have a big increase on farming. At the moment, farmers are stocking up quite a bit in all the regions in South Africa. They're trying to get stock or the products off their fields, and so they're trying to buy as much diesel. So availability is also a problem at the moment. And then also for the taxi industry, that's a massive component in South Africa. It's about 15 million South Africans that use taxis daily, and it is many of the people live up to 40 kilometers from where they work, and so the price at the moment in Cape Town, for instance, for 1 to 5 kilometers, it's between 10 and 15 rand for that trip, and further than the 5 kilometers, it's up to 20 to 30 rand for that trip. So the train is also a cheaper component in many of the cities, but it's not as reliable, and there's also cable theft, so it's not running on all the lines. And then the reality at the moment related to fuel price and the taxi industry, that there's 250,000 taxis in South Africa. So that's a huge number, and it's a big component of the economy, about 100 billion South African rand. It is what the annual revenue is from the taxi industry. The biggest spend related to that is fuel. So at the moment, fuel spent in South Africa annually is 35 billion South African rand. So you can imagine with the fuel price about to go up as much in April, and it's going to have a massive influence on that. So if the taxi industry is under pressure, then work is also under pressure. There's 600,000 people working in the industry. That's from drivers, also rank marshals, and also people that just washes the cars as well. So it's a big industry. So hopefully the fuel and diesel increase will not have a big influence on the taxi industry in South Africa. Just lastly, briefly in current news as well, there's been a rise in foot and mouth disease outbreak in South Africa, and it's the 2nd of March, there's been 932 confirmed cases. Now it's up to 1,152. But the Minister of Agriculture, Mr. John Steenhuisen, say that the reason for the number rising is because vaccinations are available now, and people are a bit more honest and are telling about cases that they have on their farms. So that is all related to current news at the moment in South Africa.
And in sport, Bafana face Panama in 2 friendly matches, and the United Rugby Championship continues with all South African teams playing home games.
In sport news in South Africa, there's lots happening on the soccer field, also the rugby field, and it is Bafana that's going to be in action. There's not going to be any PSL, that is Premier League football in South Africa this weekend because of the international window. So South Africa play against the Bafana men's team. They play against Panama. That will be 2 games. Of course, there's a World Cup soccer coming up, so this international window helps the teams also to prepare for the World Cup coming up. So it will be on Friday, this coming Friday. It will be the first game in Durban at the Moses Madiba Stadium, Bafana playing Panama. And then next week, Tuesday, it will be in Cape Town, the 31st of March. And that will be South Africa, the Bafana men's team, again playing against Panama. And that will be good preparation for Hougaard Bruce. He's the coach, of course, of Bafana. He needs the team to come back to good form. It is the first time they played since they lost 2-1. That was in the last 16 lost in Cameroon, the Africa Cup of Nations. And there's new players in the squad. It will be Themba Zwane and also Tepelo Maseko. They both are included in the squad for the 2 games. And it is also significant. South Africa Bafana last played against Panama all the way back in 2005. And in that game, it was Panama that won on penalties. So it's great soccer coming up, Bafana. Also on the rugby field, it is United Rugby Championship that continues, and all 4 South African teams again in action in South Africa. And it is on Friday already. It is the Sharks that will play against Cardiff in Durban. And then that is 7 p.m. the kickoff time, Namibia time. And then Saturday, the Bulls host Munster, 2 p.m. kickoff time. The Lions, they play at home against the Dragons. That is 4:30 on Saturday. And the Stormers in Cape Town, they play 7 p.m. on Saturday evening against Edinburgh from Scotland. So on the log at the moment, it is Glasgow Warriors from Scotland leading. They've got 50 league points. Stormers in second position on 46, and then Ulster on 42, and Leinster on 41. That's the top 4 at the moment. Other South African teams, the 7th position is the Lions on 38, the Bulls 8th position, they on 35 points, and 11th the Sharks on 29. So all to play for. South African teams playing against European teams. That's all happening Friday evening and Saturday. So that is sport action in South Africa.
All right, many thanks, Arrie. Before you take us out of the show, please do make sure you catch Africa Good Morning, DSTV 285, GOTV 25, oneup2.com, NTVAFRIKA.MY.NA, as well as NTV Africa on YouTube, keeping in mind that Africa is spelt with a K. We'll be back tomorrow with more news, specifically focusing on the video news stories of the week stemming from Namibia, and as always, the top stories stemming from Africa. Here's Arrie Hougaard talking to us about the Garden Route as the Easter weekend fast approaches.
In entertainment news in South Africa, we go up the Garden Route, and it's almost the Easter weekend, long weekend in South Africa. And typically many of the people, especially from Cape Town, will go on the Easter long weekend. One of the popular spots to visit on the Garden Route is Sedgefield. So it's a town between George and Knysna. It's very popular. It's on the coast. It's beautiful. A great coastline as well that is quite close there, and it's got a great character, Sedgefield. It was proclaimed, the town was proclaimed all the way back in 1929, and it's got about 1,500 or 15,000 rather permanent inhabitants, and lots of holiday makers that go in and out. That's got property there as well. So for holiday, you've got the beach, and it's close to the coastal towns as well for George and Knysna, for instance, and it is also golf is a big component. There's a Fynbos Links that is at Sedgefield, but also just close. You can drive just a few kilometers in the direction of George and Knysna, and then you have Bazula and also Samola. Those are 2 brilliant estate golf courses that you can also go and play golf when you visit there. So for tourism, it is massive, Sedgefield, and it is brilliant for holidays, for weekends like in the Easter weekend. You can go on walks and cycle and also go on a run, and the scenery is unparalleled. It is, you can go to Kericho's Outlook, or the Lookout Point. That's quite a popular place in Sedgefield, and then also you can go and walk in the Fynbos. So that is unique. That is unique for that Sedgefield and the wine route or the garden route area. And it is close to Cape Town, or fairly close. It's 480 kilometers. It sounds like a long distance. It's about 5 to 6 hours, but a popular route for visitors to go. And so that is all going to happen quite soon in the Easter weekend. So if you're visiting South Africa, go and visit Sedgefield on the Garden Route. That is entertainment news in South Africa.